Welcome back to Studio F, where on Fast on Willy B. We'll be reviewing The Summer of Sam. Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds.
Russell!
Welcome back to Fast Times with Willy B. I'm Willy B. I got Rosie back. Rosie, how are we doing today?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me again.
Of course. So, the very first 25th anniversary Wednesday here on Fast Times with Willy B.
Woohoo!
Today we'll be celebrating the 25th anniversary of Spike Lee's Summer of Sam, which was released July 2nd, 1999, so just a day ago. And has a pretty solid cast. We got John Leguizamo playing Vinny, our main character, Adrian Brody playing his friend Richie, Mira Sorvino playing the wife for most of the movie, Deanna, and many more. But we'll start with the good. And I would say the concept and the premise of the story is something I'd throw in the good. I think there was a little bit of a disconnect when it comes to the structure of the story, which we'll get into later. But overall, you know, the concept of bringing in the Summer of Sam story, which is based on a true story, and, you know, following along with this storyline of this killer that tormented New York City back in 1977, while also following along with different relationships of this group of people in this Italian-American, you know, friend group, and, you know, seeing how what's going on affects all of them. You know, you have a group of them that are hungry to find the killer. You have Vinny and Deanna who are, you know, trying to spice their relationship up, get things going, get their marriage back online, and then one fateful night just completely ruins that. You have Richie who just moved back from England. He's trying to fit himself back in, but Vinny's the only one that listens to him. And just following along with all of that, it was a cool concept, and for the most part, I did enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I would throw, you know, the premise and the concept in the good for sure.
Yeah, this is a brand new story for me, so I was excited to watch it unfold. I'd like to read up on some actual things that, I mean...
Like Summer of Sam's story?
Yeah. For sure. But I really liked how it all went down.
For sure. I thought the acting, for the most part, was pretty good, especially from our leads. I thought Leguizamo was awesome. Sorvino was great, and Adrian Brody, you know, sporting the British accent there for a little while.
Yeah.
He did a great job as well. I didn't have any complaints when it came to acting. Even most of our supporting characters, I do have one complaint when it comes to acting, but we'll get into that later as well. But for most of the supporting cast, it was pretty good job, you know, convincing Italian-American people.
Yeah, I think it had, they had a lot of emotion because they were so amped up to try and find the killer, and I think you had to have a lot of emotion. That's a very emotional thing to have to go through. So.
Yeah, and that group, the main group that is looking for the killer, the comedy with them is when the comedy was at its best. But for the most part, the comedy was good.
Yeah, I laughed a few times.
Now, obviously, this isn't a strict comedy. I believe it's classified as a crime thriller, which it definitely is.
Yes, for sure.
But it has a lot of comedic elements to it.
Yeah.
Without being a comedy, and for the most part, they fit. I didn't think any of the comedy was bad. I didn't feel like any of it was forced. It fit in pretty well to the story.
Yeah, very
real life comedy.
Yeah, very traditional Italian sarcasm.
Yeah.
That's what my family also thrives on, so a lot of those were good.
I liked Spike Lee's direction. I liked the style of this film.
Yeah.
It felt very artsy, retro, just a good vibe.
I loved it.
I throw the word aesthetic around. It had a good aesthetic. Shot pretty well. It did have a little bit of a low-budget feel to the shooting, but I think I liked that.
Yeah, because I think it played in with the
sleazy New York slums.
Yeah.
So I think that
they
fit
didn't have
really
to have
well.
anything upscale or fancy or whatever.
One of the one of the shots I liked a lot is when I think his name is Midnight, but he doodles Richie's hair, Adrian Brody's hair, onto the newspaper for the Son of Sam's sketch.
Yeah.
And Vinny, Leguizamo's character, is like obviously he just took a couple of Quaaludes, so he's, one, not all together, but the camera, like, starts to spin as he looks, and he's like, oh, no, like, he has a feeling that it might be Richie.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really cool camera technique they used there. But for the most part, the camera
dizzy.
work. Yeah. The camera work was pretty good for the most part. There was, when I say I like the style, there were a few editing errors. So I'll talk about those a little bit later in this video as well. But for the most part, I like the stylization and the camera work, and the cinematography was decent. I also really liked the ending.
Yeah.
Kind of like an abrupt ending, but it was a good abrupt ending.
It was, but if you think about it, like if your group of friends were doing this, it would be abrupt like that too. Yeah. Like you thought this person did it, and he actually didn't do it, and then they find out that they did. They had no idea that he was found, so it's kind of just. Yeah. And it just ends. There's like no more story, because it really is a story about them trying to find who it is.
Yeah.
And that's over, so.
And a lot of this movie, something I didn't like, which again, I could talk about later, is how Summer of Sam kind of takes the back seat to these stories. With the movie being called Summer of Sam. Or The Son of Sam takes the back seat. But, we're following along these characters, relationships and all of this. And in the final act, the group is pretty set on it being Richie. Yeah. And obviously we know it's not, because we get the clips of the guy screaming in the house, telling the dog to shut up. Yeah. The dog telling him to kill, all of that, which I did enjoy most of that. Mm-hmm. And the ending is really cool because Son of Sam gets captured, and like you said, they don't know it yet because they haven't watched the news, they haven't listened. The social media is not a thing in the 70s now. Right. So they don't know yet, and so they're, putting this group together to go hunt Richie before he leaves. Mm-hmm. And it cuts between that and back and forth with the Son of Sam being in custody and taken in. And, the people are waiting for him, saying, kill him. Like they're rioting and in celebration almost. Right. And just the flip back and forth, I thought was a cool little way to do it there. Again, I liked Spike Lee's direction a lot in this film. I think it fit really well with the setting of the film as well. But just going back and forth, you see the smirk on the Son of Sam's face, and then you cut back and Richie's getting beat up, and then all of a sudden, Richie's stepdad comes out shooting the gun and tells everybody to leave, and they're just holding him, waiting for an ambulance, and then that's the end of the movie. Yeah. And I liked it. It closed stories. It closed Son of Sam's cot. That story's closed. It gave Richie another reason why he should get out of here. It shows Vinny, like, is at rock bottom. Vinny lost everything. Vinny's the loser of this film. Definitely. Vinny just got divorced. Vinny lost his job. Vinny doesn't have a friend. And it goes to show, though, that also the stubbornness of Italian Americans, right? We know better than anybody in our families, but they were all set on Richie, and it was hard to convince them until there was a gun in their face. Yeah. I thought it was a good ending. And I liked it a lot. For sure. I like the soundtrack a lot as well. Very good. This one was nominated for a few awards when it didn't win anything but for soundtrack. And it's just a feel-good 70s. Yeah. You get some of the Who. I love the Bob O'Reilly scene with with Richie, and he's playing the guitar, and you get some more of the kills. I think the kills were really well done. I thought a lot of them are very similar in the sense that Son of Sam approaches a car, shoots into the car, kills people, but the blood looked realistic. The way the car took the bullet all looked realistic. Yeah, I would agree. It was just, it broke up the movie really well too, because they were kind of spread out throughout the film. Yeah. Gave me Zodiac vibes. This came out before Zodiac, but, similar stories, I guess. Son of Sam was writing letters to the police, not the newspaper. But. Yeah, I like that, the scene when he drops the notes. You can see him drop the note and just go, which was kind of cool. Yeah. So we'll hop over to the mat. The first thing I'd throw in the mat is definitely the editing. Not all of the editing was bad. There was some good editing. But the one that really stuck out to me was when Vinny first approaches the first crime scene, the scene where he thinks the killer saw him and all of that.
Yeah.
He is like reaching into the car to touch the blood, and when the camera turns, he's like 5 feet behind the car.
I noticed that, and the guy was like, "Hey man, you can't be in here."
And then it cuts back to him, and he's pulling his hand out. And just there were a few moments like that happened in the movie. Most of the editing, like transitions wise, were good. Overall, the movie was decently edited, but there were those things that were like, okay, that's the difference between a great movie and a good movie. And that was the one that really stuck out to me. The structure of the story, I'd probably put in the meh. There was a lot going on.
Definitely. It was a long movie.
Yeah. I think it could have been structured differently, so it could have saved some time here and there.
Yeah.
Because the ending, like I said, I like the jumping around of the ending, but the ending was the quickest part.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were some things that could have been cut short. There were some things that could have been prolonged, and the structure of the movie was a little weird. This also plays into the pacing, but I don't put the pacing in the map. I put that somewhere else, which we'll get into. But the structure of the film was just it was a little bonkers.
I thought so.
It was just messy.
Yeah, I thought there was some things that we could have done without, and some things that I would have liked a little bit more story behind.
Yeah. Like, reading the synopsis and watching the trailer, I was incredibly intrigued.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting all of that.
Yeah. And
it
was just messy. That's the word I would use. Like, it was still a good story. Mm-hmm. It was just messy.
I think most of the things that they were doing with Vinny and Deanna's story was part of the problem. Mm-hmm. That maybe we could have done without some of those things and then added that time somewhere else, maybe.
Yeah, for sure.
Is the main thing that came to my mind.
Yeah. The only other meh I have is the dance sequences we randomly get. I thought they were just a little weird and cheesy at times. And those were another thing. Like, I get them, like, in the sense that, our couple's going to the bar, but it almost turned into a music video there for a few minutes. And I guess the Baba O'Reilly scene's kind of like that, but we're getting some more. While that's all going on, we're jumping between and getting shots of some things going on. This one is strictly just watching them grind on each other, basically. And so, I don't know, those were a little weird throw-in, but that's really all I have in the meh.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good list.
So we'll hop over to the bad. I put the pacing in the bad. This movie did not need to be almost 2.5 hours.
No, it was so long.
This is a story that you could have easily gotten away, gotten the point across in hour and a half, hour 45.
Yeah. Maybe, yeah. It was lengthy, but like I said, I think they probably could have taken out some things and added time somewhere else or cut time. Yeah. So.
Thankfully, the pacing didn't push me away too much.
No.
Because this is a movie I feel like a lot of people might turn off just because of the pacing. Like, it's taking too long.
Take it to the point.
I still had a good enough time with it, but yeah, there were moments where I was like, okay, again. Yeah. And that goes along with the structure.
I think it might be so long because they want you to really, like, learn about the characters first. And then, like, in the third act, we really start building on a little bit more action. Yeah. So I think that might be a reason that happened, but I would put it also in the bad.
The other bad is just Spike Lee. Okay. Not his directing, though, his acting. He was John Jeffries, the news reporter.
Oh, my.
That was rough.
What? Yeah, but I feel... You don't think he was meant to be played like that?
I sure hope so. It's Spike Lee's movie, so if Spike Lee liked it, he had final say. He's the director. Yeah. But in my opinion, I thought it was terrible.
I mean, he was only on the TV, like, twice.
Well, yeah. It's not a bad that kills the movie. No. I'm just saying, like, Spike Lee was... His direction was one of the best parts of this movie, but his acting was one of the worst parts of this movie.
I think that maybe he was going for, like, the young... Yeah. News reporter, nervous, kind of dorky vibe, maybe. So I don't know. Maybe it was on purpose, and that was
bad.
And that was the vibe he was going for, or it was just bad.
Whatever it wasn't convincing, is what I'm saying. Yeah. Some people are just meant to stay in the director's chair, and that's okay. Yeah,
that's true.
That's okay. Not everybody needs to act and direct in every movie they're in.
That's true.
But no. I will say again, I will reiterate because I do feel bad. Spike Lee's direction was great in this movie. I just was not a fan of his cameos. Yeah. But is there anything that really stuck out to you in the bad? Because that's really all I have, is the pacing was the big one.
I don't think so.
Okay. So we'll hop over to our final thoughts and ratings. What do you want to leave off with Summer of Sam? And what do you give it out of 10?
I'm going to end with saying that I wasn't sure on the story before watching the movie. Mm-hmm. I had never heard of the movie or even the story.
Yeah.
Since it's based on a true story. But I was intrigued. I like a crime thriller, so right up my alley. And I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10.
Okay. I'm in the same boat. This was a movie that I knew very little about going into it. I have heard of it, but I didn't know what it was about. Mm-hmm. And then reading the synopsis and watching the trailer with you, I was like, I'm on board for this to be the first 25th anniversary Wednesday. Spike Lee movie, obviously as being a movie fan and a sports fan, you know who Spike Lee is because he makes movies and he's the biggest personality at Knicks games. But so I was like, okay, and then I know John Leguizamo, I know Adrian Brody. Adrian Brody's obviously made a big name for himself when it comes to acting. Mm-hmm. So I was on board, and I would say I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was going to be anything great, and it wasn't, but it still was better than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it. I think, again, it could have been a little bit shorter. I think it could have been structured and a little cleaned up, but I loved the style. I think the direction was good. Our 3 main characters were all really good. A lot of our supporting characters were good. It was funny. It had good practical effects. There's not a lot to complain about.
Yeah, I would agree.
As for score, I'll probably land on a 7 as well.
Okay.
I was really between a 6.5 and a 7, but the more I talk about it, the more I just want to say it's a solid movie.
7.
It's a solid 7.
For sure.
It's nothing that's going to blow you away, but it's definitely worth the watch. It's a good summer watch.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, go out and check it out if you haven't already.
For sure.
If you have, let me know what you thought of it. That'll do it for Summer of Sam. Rosie, thank you for coming on.
Of course.
Thank you all for watching. If you like what you're watching, please check out some of these other videos. Hit the subscribe button or follow the social links down below. Keep looking out for Wednesdays. Every Wednesday we'll be doing 25th anniversaries. Rosie will be with me for a lot of them probably. Just start doing some movie nights and check them out. But there will be other guests on here as well for 25th anniversaries. So check those out, see what's turning 25 in the coming rest of the year and to next year. And thank you again for watching. We'll talk to you all soon. Peace.
Peace and love.